I've listened to prog and metal for more than half of my life now. Now, I've been listening to metal and stuff casually for even longer than that, but I'm 29 going on 30, and I really started listening to metal and prog intently at about 14 with Opeth, Blackwater Park, Tool, Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree, all of these things like that. And it was really then that music started to shape my identity more, and I started to stretch out and look for new bands back in the days of Pandora, creating different stations on Pandora, which was a service where you would create a digital radio station and it would feed you stuff that sounded like it as you did a thumbs up and thumbs down, sort of the way that most music services do today. But back then, as far as I knew, it was pretty much what existed for that. I say this to say that there is a band that I have been sleeping on for a long time. I want to encourage you to not be like me and not sleep on this band and at least check it out. If you're a fan of anything from Opeth to Death to King Crimson to definitely Between the Buried and Me, you definitely should check out this band, Cynic. And if you're here because you know the band and you want to see my reaction, then you already know what you're in for. Just a note, I'm going to stitch this earlier into the video, but there will be timestamps. If you want to just get to the listening or anything like that, you can follow the timestamps in the description that should hopefully appear on the video. But I do tend to do a fair bit of talking about my thoughts and what it means to me, and I want to make sure to put that out there in an articulate and, again, transformative way. So I first heard of Cynic in passing because of Sean Malone. Sean played bass and I believe Chapman stick on at least one album for a project called OSI, which I highly recommend. The Office of Strategic Influence. Great album. They have several good albums, a bit of a super group actually, where they're sort of in the line between prog and metal and a little bit of electronica. They've just got a really cool thing going on where they have a unique identity. They don't really sound too much like any other band in the space, and I've really enjoyed their albums for a long time. So I was conceptually aware of Sean Malone, but again, I just never really gave a shake to Cynic. Now, lately, I've been listening to Focus and Traced in Air. So the way I like to do my reactions, I usually like to do, unless I'm going to sit down and do a full retrospective, where I'm really familiar with something and it's had a long time to marinate in my brain, I usually like to do first reactions because those are the ones that you only get to capture one time. So here's how we're going to break down today. I've got a song, which is something of a B-side that we're going to listen to. We're going to listen to a live performance, which is not one that I have heard before. And then at the end, we're going to listen to a song that I have heard that I discovered just a few days ago that really sat with me and I think is going to be a go-to for me for many, many years. And we're just going to talk about my experience with that. So settle in, enjoy the ride with me. There may be some pauses and stuff. I do try to respect the whole copyright fair use thing in as much as I want my content to be performative. I don't want it to serve as a market replacement for the artist. I will encourage you to go and listen to their things. In general, I don't dispute copyright claims when artists make them and want the revenue from the videos where I'm using their work. I usually don't dispute those because I think that's fair enough that they get paid for me being able to sit here and just talk about, my opinion on what the actual work was that the art went into and everything. So this first one that we're going to be listening to is off of their Bandcamp. I do intend on purchasing a couple of these. We'll get into that a little bit more, but they have their whole discography on there, or at least a substantial digital discography, and I definitely recommend, if you want to support them, consider purchasing directly through there. But let's get into it. We're going to start with Earth is My Witness. I heard about 30 seconds of this, and then I stopped and I said, let's save this. Let's do a listen together with everybody. There's a note here. Earth is My Witness is the last full song Sean Reinert, Sean Malone, and I recorded together during the Kindly Bent to Free Us sessions. It didn't quite fit the album. It had its own spirit, a kind of post-kindly language, so we left it off. It briefly appeared on a limited box set, but this is its first proper digital release. Thanks for listening and for being here. This one doesn't begin so much as it unfolds. It moves like a rite of passage, emotional and raw, pulling through tension before opening into something wide and luminous. There's a quiet reckoning inside it, a feeling of being shaped by unseen forces. Lyrically, it circles around what it means to be witnessed by the earth itself. As Alan Watts said, "You didn't come into this world, you came out of it. Like a wave from the ocean, you are not a stranger here." Now, this is interesting here because Alan Watts is somebody that a number of musicians have sampled and taken inspiration from. He tends to be very much about your place in the world, your experience with the world, being as a part of the world, existence, non-existence, all of this sort of stuff tends to be a fairly uplifting, as far as existential discussion goes, tends to be a fairly uplifting source. I have seen Paul Masvidal talk a little bit about different philosophies and different ideas of being with the universe and things like that. So while I'm not deeply familiar with his beliefs and with the band's beliefs, I think they are influenced by sort of spiritualities and existentialism and things like that. So just interesting to note. And of course, I think it's going to tie in with the song here. Let's get started. Earth is my witness. All right, light turned off. Obviously, that intro is just huge and very, very sonically rich. I know that's something that I say a lot, but it's something that I look for in music. And me spending most of my music time as a bassist in my background, that's of course where I'm going to key in on first. But just the sound, the roundness, the vocality of the bass. I'm assuming, like much of the work by Cynic, that the bass is fretless, and you can hear, like I said, a very vocal approach. Bassists refer to it as kind of a moi sound because it doesn't just hit a note. It kind of approaches a note. It kind of adds a subtle vibrato to a note that makes it very lyrical and very expressive. And of course, very tight band as a whole. We're seeing lots of things with complex harmony and scales. I couldn't tell you exactly what they are, but you can just hear there's a lot going on, different subdivisions of rhythm and things like that. I love that build. I want to play something back and listen to the way you've got, I mean, bass, guitar, drums Each are taking on their own voice, and listen to the way that they sort of call and answer. And they're not just, and there's nothing wrong with this, but a lot of bands will very much have a melody and a basic chord structure, and they outline that, they hit the same emphasis, the bass outlines the bass notes. But listen to the complexity and the interplay of the drums and then the stringed instruments that we have here. Almost entirely bass here. Little change up there. We're about to get into it. But what I noticed in this section was the guitar had this sliding, glassy, overlaid. I almost think of it as like a hall of mirrors effect, but for audio instead of visual. It sounded like there were multiple layers, maybe an octaver being used. But the way they just slide between notes and create this rich, what sounds like multiple voice sound. Right there. Slide, wide vibrato. And here's where it sounds like a pitch shift or an octave kind of accompaniment. Oh yeah, bring it home.
is my witness.
Ooh, and that final chord, there's some tension in there. It's not fully resolved. I want to hear right about here. There was a point where they've got the groove going, and it's very short and maybe subtle if you're not listening for it, but they've got a groove going, and then they cut it and then slowly play out a chord. And it's almost like what they're doing with the song is being like, okay, we're doing this, but wait, stop. I'm over here now. And it's just a very cool intentional effect. Then they let that chord be rung out before they get into the final groove. Right there.
Is my witness.
Vocal harmony, very nice. So, okay, let's look at the lyrics here. Tell me, father, mother, unborn, flesh and blood growing cold, ashes from every bone will dissolve into the air. Tell me, jury, soldier, and king, holy sentiments sing. Rivers flow backwards to you and give to us some strength. Every sinking sun, we're clawing at the door. Every beating drum, there's noise we can't ignore. I'm staring right at the gates. Shipwreck banter undulates. This chemistry endangers me. These precious strains are burning static. Weather beaten, war flames feeding, burial grounds. Secrets shout. Then Pleiades shone from the east to tell me the earth is my witness. So there's a little here that I'll be honest is just going to go over my head. But this seems to me obviously to be about the cycle of birth and death, the being created from the earth and the universe, and the going back into it. Yeah, just it seems like a very personal meditation on the nature of all of it, the ephemeral nature, but also the, in some ways, eternal nature of it all. That's just my surface level reading of it. I'm sure that there's something very deep and profound in there. But that was the Earth is, or just Earth is my witness. Great song. And like I was saying before, the first time I was listening to Cynic and in all of these others, I'm hearing bits of bands that came before them, and then I'm hearing ways that I think they might have shaped other bands. We've got everything from, like I said, Death, but also King Crimson, Gentle Giant, Camel kind of sounding stuff. And then on the other side, you can hear. Now, I wouldn't want to assume for these other artists and step into their shoes, but I think it would be hard to deny inspiration in more modern and technical bands. Like what comes to mind for me is between the Buried in Me and Neo Obliviscaris and bands like this that use the very melodic and complicated bass and the influence of jazz fusion and things like that. Just really a super solid band that I think maybe I was the one living under a rock, but I just don't feel that they've always gotten their due for what, the music they've managed to put together. Let's check out King of Those Who Know live in Mexico, 2010. And I want to see. So this is not one where we have Sean Malone on bass. It looks like Robin Zielhorst, which is not somebody I'm familiar with, but we're going to check it out live in Mexico City at the Ice Cream Metal Fest. Traced in Air Tour. And I have the lyrics up for this one as well, but we're just going to give this a listen and also check out their live performance, their stage presence, how they perform live as a band and everything. Let's give it a listen. I just want to say the cleanness of the playing and the switching between styles and dynamics. You've got distorted, you've got totally clean picking, you've got modulation effects, which sounds like chorus and reverb, and we're switching all of these, but the levels are staying very consistent. It's very legible by the ear, very easy to understand, and well mixed and very well performed. Super tight. Super high levels of playing here. Little vocoder, I think. There's a ton of movement in this song. What really strikes me about this band is it doesn't feel like anybody is taking a back seat, and it also doesn't feel like anybody is going over the top. It feels like an ensemble where everybody is highly talented and the part writing on all of it is pretty complex. But I noticed, like, for instance, this other guitarist over here, which was Timon. I noticed when he was soloing, we weren't really getting like a spotlight, full up camera shot of just the guitar solo that was going on. We were getting the whole band, which we've been getting the whole show. And obviously, we've got movement on the bass. We've got super tight and somewhat busy drums. And then we've got a couple guitar parts, and it just seems like everybody is in their element doing their thing. I would struggle to say that there is a weak link in this, or that there's somebody who's standing out or taking, more attention than anybody else. It just feels like everybody's there to serve what they're doing, which is complex, but also fairly grounded. Looks like we're going to get a solo here. beautiful playing and tone. Ooh, very nice. Great dynamics. Oh, that's a beautiful chord. Okay, that was great. Like I said, great dynamics on there. The mixing is good. Everything came through, whether it was a little distorted or whether it was clean. It was all coming through the mix, and I felt like I could hear everything well. The bass was in its pocket. You know, it was there where you could hear it. It wasn't overpowering. I do think it's interesting for a heavy band, and I start to appreciate more bands who do this, where they're not actually using a killer amount of gain and distortion. They've got some chugs going on and stuff for sure, but very articulate and very kind of restrained, where they're using every instrument, I think, to the fullest to fill out the frequency space available to them. They're really letting the drums and the bass support and fill the frequencies in between. And like I said, very articulate and great dynamics on those guitars. So we're going to go to one now that I have heard, and like I said, I listened to it a few times over and just absolutely moved me. I think it's going to be up there with my beautiful sad songs that destroy me with some very great ones. I definitely get vibes of like King Crimson's Starless and, you know, Opeth, Patterns in the Ivy, and just some of these really beautiful, haunting, sad songs. And that one is Integral, which is featuring Sean Malone and as a tribute as well. So it says here, a few years after the release of Cynic's Retraced EP, Sean Malone recorded fretless bass on this solo guitar and vocal track titled Integral. And then they have some information about charity and such that they're supporting with it, sort of in his memory. And man, when I tell you just this song, but also, I don't know, the feeling of loss and mourning and also celebration at the same time, just something about the combination came together in a way that really touched me, and I had to just sit and listen to it. And then when it ended, I had to sit and listen to it again, and now we're going to hear it one more time. So this is Integral.
The bliss of transcendence. I touch the string, though the harp may not sing. Still I deck the sky for sun sparks to guide. Down below there's a land with an ominous hole, dug deep in the sand of belief. A million doves orbit round the earth with tears
Okay, I gotta pause it because I've got to be contributing here in some way, not just sitting here like listening to it and using somebody else's work to fill the time. But man, the absolute beauty in this song. Um, I talked about the vocality of the fretless bass before, and you can really hear the way it sings here, the expression and the clarity and sustain of the notes, and also the way that he's taking advantage of sort of multiple registers of the instrument. He's playing a little more up in the treble ranges, maybe something to draw a crude comparison, something in the cello, the higher cello range, where you don't always get that chance in the full band setting, but is taking on as much of the melody and also counterpoint of what the guitar and the vocal are doing. And when he drops down to a low note, you can feel it. It just resonates through everything that's going on. It's a great pedal. And like I said, it's a great way of using the full range of the instrument for all of its effect. And there's a couple places where just a couple, some stepwise motion or something on the bass, just climbing up or down a couple of notes, absolutely changes the foundation of the song here. And of course, the vocals are beautiful. I love the sound of the nylon string. I love nylon string guitars. And also the way that this song uses tension and then resolution, where in the tension, there's a sort of pain point that is at once really pretty and nostalgic. That to me is sort of like, it can only be said as beautifully sad. It's a celebration and also a loss for something. And then when we resolve the note, it's a period of rest. I don't know if anybody else is picking up on that or feels the same way that I do, but it's immediately what I get from the peaks and the resolutions in the music.
On the earth with tears of blood, death a virgin take, integral birth. From the void I am born, into waving particle, in the uncreated light, emerged an oracle, a million times, orbit round the earth with tears of blood. Slay the dragon, take integral birth.
Oh man, those bass leads.
Weep no more.
That low note on the bass and these vocal harmonies.
Silence, I share my way home. A million times
Man, something about the footage of him putting the bass down at the end there is just it's a powerful closing note to me. It's an absolutely beautiful song. We'll take a look at the lyrics here. I touch the string, though the harp may not sing. Still I dig the sky, for sun sparks to guide. Down below there's a land with an ominous hole, dug deep in the sand of belief. A million doves orbit round the earth with tears of blood. Dare the virgin take integral birth. From the void I am born into wave and particle. In the uncreated light emerged an oracle. A million doves orbit round the earth with tears of blood. Slay the dragon, take integral birth. Weep no more, noble silence usher my way home. A million doves orbit round the earth with tears that flood. Line and sand erased, we are but one cosmic cavalcade. We are but one. Time has come, I take integral birth. So again, a lot of those same themes that we talked about with the existentialism and the passing into and out of life, the creation from the universe, all of those things, reckoning with the shared but also very individual nature of our existence. Just some really, really powerful stuff that I don't know. It's rare to hear sometimes these thoughts expressed in a way that is so natural and yet still invites such thought. And as far as this song, I absolutely, if you look over here in their releases on Bandcamp, they have a download available for this song that it comes with two downloads, and one of them is the instrumental with no bass, so that anybody can play along with it and play their own bass, which is just such an appealing thought to me because of the absolute mastery of bass in this performance and the way that it furthers and progresses the song so much. I absolutely think it's an amazing study and something that I will love to play alongside. And maybe with a lot of discipline and more bravery, maybe I'll eventually do a playthrough of that and upload it to share. But I would encourage anybody who's interested to check it out and get a hand on that. But yeah, this was Cynic. Now, the thing with Cynic is they've done a lot of evolution, and what I listened to today was not all of their heaviest stuff. I think there's definitely facets to this band, and I think that they definitely have inspired technical metal at a high level, and there is plenty of that to be experienced as well. I think we just ended up with stuff that was a little more on the prog side today. So if you're interested in more, I encourage you to check them out. And like I said, maybe in time, as I become very familiar with these albums, maybe I will want to revisit some of the heavier and more straightforwardly aggressive work. With that in mind, I have been doing a lot of reactions and listens. I find they come very naturally to me, and they're very fulfilling to talk about music and have a platform to share it in a way that I am sharing my experiences and my thoughts. I would love to do stuff that's more scripted and more carefully thought out, and I've got a couple outlines in the works for some album retrospectives and, some album lists, like which albums are most meaningful to me and things like that. In particular, my interests tend to be prog and fusion, metal, video game music, things like that. So if you're into any of that, I would encourage you to check out the other videos on the channel. The end card here should show you something that's recommended for you based on your viewing habits, and maybe consider subscribing. I'd love to have you along with the channel. I'd love to have your feedback on what you thought of this video, what you'd like to see more of in the future, anything like that. And I hope to bring you many more videos and share much more about the music that I love. So until we catch you again, please take care of yourselves.